Okay, thank you so much for joining Exploratory online seminar. This time is the number 48, and I'd like to introduce Exploratory version 6.6. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kan Nishida, CEO at Exploratory. We started Exploratory in spring 2016 to democratize data science. Since then, we've been building Exploratory desktop to make it easier for anybody to access data science methods or technology to understand their data better. And then we call it the third wave. In a nutshell, we basically provide a UI to do all sorts of data science works. And when we say the data science, usually the data science starts with the business questions, and then you want to answer the question with data. So like you want to access the data, transform and clean the data. We call it data wrangling. And then you use charts to visualize or use analytics to find the patterns in the data. And then eventually you want to find, once you find the insights, you want to communicate with coworkers and partners more effective way. So we provide reporting capability as well. So that's exploratory, really, is a data access, data wrangling, data visualization, analytics, communication. We think these five components of the data science is critical. So we provide a modern and simple UI to do these things. Okay, enough about the introduction. So let's get started. Exploratory online seminar number 48. This time, I'd like to present Exploratory version 6.6. We released Exploratory version 6.6 last Friday, but that was like a 6.6.1 the first initial version. And then we just released the patch 6.6.2 last night. So I recommend you download the latest. I think this is more stable version. So yeah, so there are a bunch of new features and enhancements and bug fixes in this release, but I like to cover some of the exciting new features. So starting from Salesforce data source. So we got a lot of requests for this from our customers who use Salesforce. Before, you had to use sort of a kind of custom ODBC driver, and then you had to figure out the licensing and then the whole thing with the third-party vendor. But now we actually developed some sort of like out of the box native access to the Salesforce. So with this new version, you upgrade to the Exploratory 6.6, and then you have it. So there are two modes. One is a UI, so you just select the columns and then get the data and so on. The other, Salesforce supports something called SOQL or something like that. Basically, is a SQL variant. So if you're more comfortable writing SQL, you can actually do that as well. So the UI part, I like to quickly cover a quick demo on this one. So here's the Exploratory, and what we did is under the Cloud Apps data, we added this like a Salesforce. So this is a new icon here. Once you click it, click this, and then the first time, you're going to be asked for allow the Exploratory to access your Salesforce data. That is called like OAuth, Open Authentication. So once you do it, it seems like it's basically similar to Google Analytics or Google Sheet kind of stuff. And once you do it, then you are going to be able to see all your data. So under the table, you see all the pre-included data as well as your custom table object as well. So this time, like let's say, like I want to select opportunity or something. Then you're going to see a list of the columns under the table. So let's say, like I like to see like from the, some of the columns using the shift key. Let's say maybe I'm going to select all these columns and click that run button. So that data just came down from the Salesforce environment. This is actually fake data or fictional data that Salesforce provides as sort of like for development. But the cool thing here, you can actually click on the save button to download, and then start doing all sorts of things. But also here, there's a filter button. So you can click on this filter, And then let's say, hey, you know what, like I like to see the customers, or like, this is like actually opportunity of maybe let's say start with, looks like there's a the customers starting from United. So like I want to type, let's say like United or something. And then click on the run button, and then this will filter the data. So that I basically send a request to the Salesforce and ask Salesforce to filter the data, and then we get that subset of the data. The variation to the filter, this is the same filter capability that you see inside Exploratory. There's a limited capability because the Salesforce doesn't support certain type of filtering operations, but most of the stuff is basically the same. So cool thing, for example, let's say if I select the date column, I think this is like a close date or something. And then there's a relative date option. The relative date is, for example, under the year or something months. And then let's say like last, 3 months of the data. And then I click on the run button. Oops. And then like you can filter the data as well. So basically this is pretty much a similar experience. And the one thing though, this is not just for Salesforce, by the way, but we added the calendar picker for all the filter dialogues. So what that is for example, hey, like I want to get the latest, particular date. And then like you had to type the date before, but now like we have the calendar widget. So you can use that as well. And another thing is pretty cool is actually you can create the parameter. And if you want to know more detail about the parameter, like I have done the seminar in the past, so you might want to take a look. But assuming we already have the parameter created, then let's say like I already created this, here's a stage name and a stage of the sort of sales cycle, right? And then like I can do, let's say like is in and then selecting multiple, but I can actually click on this parameter section. And then this will show all the parameters that you have created in the same project. In this case, I have created a stage parameter. Then I can click on OK. What this is going to do is now right-hand side here, there's a parameter button. When you click on the parameter, then you can select, let's say, hey, I want to see like only the opportunities that close as one, or like I want to select maybe, qualification phase project opportunity or something, and click run. And this information actually been just sent to the Salesforce and then let it filter data, and then you get basically the result of this filtering operation. So then, of course, cool thing about this is not just here that once you download this data, and then you can even publish this data to our server, Exploratory server, and then you can let your users or your coworkers to use the parameters and then directly basically interact with the Salesforce instance as well. So that's kind of cool stuff. Instead of like downloading all the data, like you can use a parameter to kind of interact or dynamically filter the data as well. Okay, so that's that. I'm gonna just remove the filter and then download all the data here, and then let's call it like opportunity, maybe like Salesforce or opportunity or something, and then create a data frame, and then the data is being downloaded. Once it's downloaded, it's basically now like exploratory experience. So you have all the summary view, and then you can start creating a chart. One thing I like to do quickly demo on, there are many things you can do, but one of the things I find personally very convenient is that, so this is a stage name. And if you're familiar with the sales cycle, usually like you start with a prospect, like you get the customer request, or like got a phone call with a customer, and they are not sure, like, or you are not sure this customer is going to be convert or not. So that starts with a prospect, and then you go into the qualification phase and then try to see like who that customer is, a high possibility of becoming a customer or not, that kind of stuff. And it goes through all different types of phases, and then eventually, if you close the deal, then we say a close win or something. So the problem of this, so this is basically the stage name, and then we are showing number of the opportunities. And this is sorted by the numbers of the opportunities. But sometimes it's more useful to line up the go through the process of the sales cycle. And in the case, let's say like if I instead of like sorting by the y-axis, I just remove the sort, and this actually gets even worse because now it's sorting by the alphabetical order, and it's nothing to do with the natural sorting order of the sales cycle. So now this is the kind of thing that you can actually do the data wrangling. And one thing you can do is from the column header menu, and you can set the orders. In a special word, we call it level, but you can set that how you want to order this stage name. And then you can actually convert from character data type to factor data type, which is unique to R, which is the base of the exploratory. So what it means is, so if I select manually, and what it's going to do is it's going to use this fct underscore read level, which is the function that converts from character to factor. But not only that, it allows you to set the order information inside this column. So, and I can say like, hey, you know what? Like I want to say like this prospecting is the first. And then from the second, I can say like maybe the qualification, and so on. And I can select all of these. There are like 9 stages or something, but I am a little lazy, so I've already copied beforehand before this demo. And then so I set this way. So prospecting, qualification, needs analysis, and so on. And if I run this, what is going to happen is like here, stage name, the data type becomes factor data type instead of character. It looks like a bit pretty much the same. It's a kind of like a character type of data. However, it has the order information. So it's always like it's showing up. You can show this data in this order. And the number of the levels is 9, and then base level, which is basically the first value in that order, is prospecting. And then when I go to the chart, and I would expect it's sorted, but it's not. That's because the pin bottom is not assigned to the step 2 where I set those orders. Now, once I move the pin bottom, and then this x-axis is order in a sort of like expected way. So this is actually pretty useful, especially this kind of visualization. So let's say like if I want to change that x-axis to the name. This is like a name of the opportunity or the name of the customers. And I can even assign the same thing, the stage name. And then let's say like expected revenue or something like that for that y-axis. And then here, what I'm doing is, let me change the chart. Basically, the expected revenue for each opportunity, and it's sorted by the amount of the revenue. But here, I can see the prospecting, qualification, needs analysis. This color here as well, this also respects the order that I have just set for this column. And not only this is now like we're talking about how this order is, but the cool thing about this factor data type is that, let's say like if I create, let's say like I create create a filter or something here, and then let's say stage name, and then like I'm going to use this is in, and then let's say prospecting, and then let's maybe like a close 1 or something. So now I have 2, and if I select these 2, look at look at this one right here in a column. Even though like I selected only 2 stages, but 9 stages showing up here. And the reason I think it's really cool is because this color, at this point, it's not necessarily like my favorite color, but this closed 1 is always this color. I don't even know how to describe this color. This like a yellow green or something. So no matter what, like how many, like which stage I select, it always using this color. So then, I can guarantee like whenever I see this one, oh, this means close win, right? So it's actually not only for myself, but also like my audience, make sure like they're not going to be confused, with a different type of different color assignment. Okay, so that's cool. And then I can actually, so the one the parameter I used was a data import dialog, which means that whatever the values replaced by the parameter will be sent to the Salesforce. This case, I downloaded the whole data, and then I can switch to the parameter. I create a filter here, and then using a parameter as part of the filter. So this one is like based on the downloaded data. I can still use the parameter to filter the data as well. Let's say like I create the filter, and then what's going to happen is here, like right hand side top, there's a parameter section, and then I can start, assigning or selecting different values. Um, then update that chart as well. And the cool thing about here is once I create this chart or even parameters, and I can move on to creating the dashboard. So I created the kind of basic dashboard somewhere. I think this one. Okay, here. And then this one is also like using the same Salesforce data, except like some of the stuff is coming from opportunity table, some of the stuff coming from lead table. And then let's say like I want to add another chart I just created. So I can click on this one and then select that SF opportunity. And then let's say like I want to insert this data. And then like I can run this, but also like let's say like I want to sort of like redesign this, adjust this layout. So click on the add row, and then I have this little section right here, and then I can drag and drop to move the chart. And then at this point, the layout is kind of like funky because the first row is kind of like crashed, and then second row is super big, and that's because it tried to fit the screen. So I can use this set height evenly. This is also a new feature in the version 6.6. If I click on this, and then now like first, second, third is evenly adjusted. And then now at this point, hey, you know what, like a first one, like I don't really need this much. And then second one, maybe like I want to just adjust it like sort of half and half or something. And then I can go click on round bottom, then I can expect to have this new layout. Okay. And then again, like if I click on parameter and all the parameters, this is actually Japanese text, but this parameter is actually I created for this chart. So all the parameters that are necessary to generate this dashboard or associated with any chart automatically be added and in the parameter pane. And then lastly, I can actually publish it. So this is, let's say like a Salesforce demo dashboard or something. And then let's say publish it. And then this is going to publish to our exploratory server. And once it's published, I can actually open it in a browser. And then I can see it, and then I can start, inviting other folks and whoever I would like to invite, or I can actually interact with the parameters that I created in the desktop. And this is also like whoever like I invited, they can also interact with this dashboard now. And then these parameters, if the parameters is actually used inside this dashboard or chart, then it does that inside this exploratory server instance as well. But the parameter was used in that data import dialog. That means whenever I change this parameter value, that will be sent to the Salesforce, and then get sort of like matching data. So this is, I think it's pretty powerful to be able to provide a capability for your audience to interact with the sales data in a web browser in this like dashboard or chart or note format. Okay. So that's in a nutshell of the Salesforce. And then let's go back to the slide. So this was basically I was using the UI, but also you can write a SQL. In that case, you want to select the database data and the data frame menu and select the Salesforce, and then you will have the SQL editor that you might be familiar with other data source database types. And then here in this SQL2, you can embed or like you can insert the parameter as well. Okay, so that's it for the Salesforce. And the data source area, we have improved the SQL data import dialog as well by adding the table search support. So, sometimes you might have like a bunch of tables, especially like Google BigQuery has a tons of data sets. So you can actually type in and then filter, what data sets to be shown or tables to be shown as well. Okay, so that's a data source. Now let's move on to summary view. Summary view is we're pretty passionate about this particular view because we think, as much as we talk about democratizing data science, but it's actually it is hard. You have to have certain types of knowledge or skills and so on. But I think like you can go to the analytics view and then let's say like, hey, you know what, like I want to do that random build the prediction models, or I want to do statistical tests and so on. But that is sort of like you already have certain background or knowledge, then it makes it much easier to do in Exploratory. However, it requires certain type of knowledge, right? But summary view is sort of like you can kind of exploring mode, like you just click the button and then you get a lot of information. And that's why like we think, we're passionate to improve this area. I think we really believe that democratization probably starts from this summary view. Anyway, so the correlation mode is where like we enhance this time, and also data export area as well. This one too, let's take a look. So if I go back to, I'm gonna just use this like data called HR employee. Basically, like each record or each row is an employee. And all the columns, basically the attributes that describe each employee. Okay, so if I go to the summary view, so like basically we are looking at the summary information for each column with a visualization and also statistics like median and so on. Here's a correlate button, and that's where you can select the sort of like target. Oops, I'm going to just take it off this one. Select that. Let's say in this case, I'm selecting monthly income. And once I select it, like all the columns basically showing like what the relationship with the monthly column. So for example, age, I can see like, age increase, and then like how does monthly income average, by the way, or mean of monthly income increase or decrease. And with this release, we removed that like a summarized mode in the previous release. So you always have this mode. So sort of like back to like the two releases back kind of. But the numerical column like now is a line chart with a confidence interval range. And then with a logical or character or even factor data type, then you're going to see this error bar, which basically the center dot is showing, in this case, the average or mean, and then with a 95% confidence interval. What happened to the box plot? I'm not sure like everybody's familiar with it, but you in the previous version, you could show the distribution of each category or data point. So that is still here, but it went underneath this setting button. Under the setting button, there's a chart type. Instead of aggregation, hey, like I want to see the distribution. Then you click on apply button, then you will see the box plot as well. Okay, so now get back to that aggregation, and then now we have this one here, the prediction button. That's also new. So if you turn this on, then you see this like a darker blue color. This is actually the predicted value for each column. In this case, though, don't get confused. This one is something called not simple regression. Simple regression model or univariate. So this one is basically really the monthly income, the age relationship. And then when you look at here, it's a relationship between attrition and monthly income. However, for the age, this model is being created behind the scenes. It's actually a linear regression model. And it's basically telling you that, hey, if the age is 41 years old, then that, most likely the monthly income will be in around here, or expected to be this value or something. So you can see that sort of predicted value, for the categorical columns. In linear regression case, it just gives you the average or mean, which is basically exact the same as the original actual value. So it's nothing really interesting about that. But it's kind of cool because you can see, hey, if there is a correlation or not. So for example, this line is going up or going down, and obviously there's some sort of like relationship where, for example, something like this, the line is basically almost like a flat. And in that case, probably like, in this case, this distance from home, even like a longer the distance or shorter the distance, the monthly income range is not going to much changing. So that's what you can see from here. One thing though, from here, you might want to check on the sync y-axis among charts. Then you can see all the charts using the same scale on the y-axis range. And this will give you even better idea if each column has any relationship with monthly income. For example, in this case, the distance from home, the blue line is even more flatter. So it probably doesn't matter. And you don't need this straight line. You can see like for example, correlation value or R-square value. But this visually, you can see like, oh, okay, it doesn't really matter if the distance from home increase or decrease in terms of monthly income. So now this blue line is a predicted value, right? So I said like this is a linear regression, but you can actually switch the prediction model by going here, this setting inside the setting dialog. You can switch linear regression to, let's say, like a random forest or decision tree. So linear regression is a statistical model, has a constraint of like, in this case, the coefficient or slope is constant. However, for example, something like machine learning model is more flexible. So what I mean by that is like, let's say like if I select a random forest, and then what this is going to do is it creates the univariate model for each column, but with random forest algorithm. And unlike linear regression, the line, in this case, for example, is not like straight line. So, for example, here from 41 years old to 45 years old, 47 years old, around that range, it's actually kind of going down because the data has a tendency or some pattern to go down instead of like keep going up or something. So that type of the pattern, if you have in the data, then a random forest or tree-based model or the machine learning model is good at capturing that kind of pattern. So therefore, you ended up seeing this kind of like zigzag line. I'm going to sort this by the R square, then it's probably much easier to see which columns have more or stronger correlation with monthly income. So this one is obvious. So for example, total working years, and it's very close to the matching to the original value. And then you can capture, for example, from here 14 to 18 years, the salary monthly income doesn't much change, or if anything go down. But then from here 18 to 22 is like a super jump. It's like something happening in this company. So that type of pattern you can find. This one is a numerical numerical variable. You can select the logical variable, and what this is going to do is this, by default, it will use logistic regression. And then, but I have selected random forest. So now what I'm seeing here is a random forest, except with attrition as a target column. And then right now, it's basically from 0% to 100%. So this is basically like, what's the percentage? What's the, the probability of a given employee to attrition, so it quit, right? So monthly income looks like seems like a particular range, like attrition, the probability of leaving the company increase. Age, basically, the younger you are, like more likely to leave the company. Then, like once you hit a certain age, then from there, the longer, the older you are, and then decrease the probability of leaving the company until you pass a certain age or something. And again, this line is showing the predicted values with random forest prediction model. You can actually switch it from random forest to, let's say, like logistic regression model. Then you're going to see the logistic curve for each column if it's a numerical variable. If it's categorical, then you basically see the original ratio or of true of the attrition. Okay, so that's the correlation modes enhancement we have made. And then another thing that there's a statistical test. So this model dependent, model independent. When you select model independent, it will use classical Wallis statistical test. When you use model dependent, then it will use the statistical test that is used in the statistical prediction model. For example, logistic regression case, I think it will use I think it's I forgot what exactly the test of the logistic regression is, but I gotta double check. But whatever the p-value or the statistical test that comes by logistic regression. And then when you select, for example, linear regression, and then I get basically the same thing here. That comes with from the linear regression model. But in that case, I think that's a f-test is the one used for the linear regression. Okay, so that's the correlation mode. But also, you notice right-hand side top, there's an export button. So when you click this, then you can export that data, whatever the data you're seeing here, the data to draw this chart, and also these stats. Those are the ones can be exported in Excel or CSV. Not only the correlation mode, but even the genetic mode as well. Here, this exporter is export summary data, and then so that's the one. If you want to export this data in Excel or something, then these are the menu you want to select. Okay. So here, and then once you export it, and then you are going to see the data in this format. Okay, so that's the summary view. And from here, I like to cover two new additions to analytics view. One is the text analysis, and the other is factor analysis. So let's start with factor analysis. Factor analysis is basically kind of close to the PCA, but slightly different variations to it. But what it is especially when you have data like survey data, you have a bunch of columns, and then like you want to see like what are the sort of like latent variable that are expressed by a given set of the variables. So and then typically like the way you use is like, hey, like I'm not sure like we need 20 questions to ask. Maybe like we can say like 2 or 3 questions. How can we reduce the number of the questions? And then that's where like factor analysis can help you. The first thing you're going to see is a bar plot, and very similar to what you see in the PCA. But let's say like you have 10 or 20 variables, and then try to visualize or try to express the information in a 2-dimensional space, basically X and Y, and then while it try to keep as much information as it can. And then, so that's the bar plot. And then, when you go to the weights table, and you can see, which factor that each variable being more expressed. And so this, and then, here is a chart, a visualized version. This is using the bar chart, basically showing what you saw in that table. So this one also, for example, in this case, factor one is really these set of the questions basically with the positive values and the left-hand side. These are the questions that are expressed in this factor one, so maybe you can see some commonality among them. Okay, and then there's a script plot, and then this will help you, okay, how many factors I should set. So maybe in this case, for example, like probably 3 factors are the one like maybe expressed in these set of questions. So the 3, sort of like think about it as 3 categories of variables. Okay, so that's a factor analysis. I'm not sure like I have explained really well in this factor analysis, but I'm planning to do more deep dive on the factor analysis in future as well. The next one is a text analysis, and this is actually pretty exciting. My favorite, personal favorite in this release, to make text analysis much easier. By using the UI. So let's say, let's go to this one also, a quick demo on this. I have downloaded the Twitter data beforehand. And let's say here, I hope this one is the one I was expecting to look. Okay, here. So here, this is like a word cloud. Basically, original data is something like this. It's like, it's the tweet that I search based on data science as a keyword, and I downloaded that data. Okay. I think data science, right? Yeah, data science. Search text is data science. And then what I did was I created this step to tokenize this text. Tokenize usually basically like by word, and then each word will become each row kind of thing. So then once I do that, and then like do some like stop word and then all that sort of like a data wrangling stuff, and eventually you get this type of the data. Then you go to the chart, and you are going to be able to see that, well, for example, like one of the way to visualize is use the word cloud chart and then see, okay, so AI and learning and Python, those are the words frequently appear in these tags, right? So that's the one that you could do in the previous release. But with this release, we wanted to make it much easier. So going to the analytics view, and then I don't actually need to do this data wrangling at all. So I can start with this one. Let's say like I'm going to move this pin button. So that means I just download it from the Twitter, or like, if you do the survey, let's say the free form text or something, you just import that data here. And then you go to the analytics view, then select this text analysis. Then you want to select the columns that contains the text. In a special word, you say like a document, but it's basically in this case each tweet. So I'm going to select the text, and that's it. I'm going to just click on Run button, and behind the scene, it will do the tokenizing the text. So basically decomposing each tweet into a series of the word, and then. And then basically, strip out some of the stop words, and then showing you the sort of like high frequency of the words. In this case, I see data and science. Let's see, actually, like go to the words bar. This is like a bar chart. Basically the same thing of what you see on the word cloud, except this one is, I think, a top 20 by the default. And you see data science, and it's in a way it's kind of like, of course, because I search data science, and then every single tweet should have data science. So I want to actually remove this, and that's something that you go to the property, and this is where you can do all sorts of configuration. So first, there's a remove stop words. Sometimes you don't want to remove, but I recommend you remove. So then, kind of like a basic word like is or this or something like that commonly appear in any text or any document can be removed. And then the language, in this case, it detects which language this is. If this is English, it will use English stop word dictionary. if it's Japanese, it will use Japanese language dictionary. So it detects, I think looking at the first 100 of 200 rows or something. And then you can add additional stop words. Hey, these are the one like I want you to remove. So in this case, data, that is, let's consider this as a stop word because every single text has a data. So it doesn't make sense to see data as a kind of a top category or something. And then also science, and this is again, basically, let's consider science as a stop word in this context. And what this is going to happen, like let's click on the apply button, and then it will do the tokenization again, and then but this time, it will strip the data and the science words from the dictionary as well, from the data as well. And in data science, I forgot to remove this but again, this should be also kind of like obvious. So I'm gonna remove this data science, and then remove this, and I hope this is not going to show up at the top. And then, but this is the kind of thing that you might want to have to do. And then like you eventually you get this kind of result. Only thing, if you might want to use a sample data size to be like, let's say like 100 or 200 or something small data, then you can work on the stop words or other dictionary types of setting. Then you can get more like much quicker interactions. And then once you are comfortable with the configuration, then you want to go full blown all the data. But we have improved the performance behind the scene as well, so that even the tokenization compared to the previous release, or like this analytics view should be much faster than what you do on this right-hand side data wrangling step. We are going to improve the performance on the data wrangling side of the tokenization as well in the next release, but with this 6.6, only the analytics view can benefit from the performance improvement we did in this release. Okay. And now, so let's go back to the word cloud. And then, okay, so now data and science is gone. So like it looks like learning Python AI machine seems like these are the one kind of appearing a lot. Okay, so that's the basic thing. And then the next thing you want to know is, hey, what are the pair of the words being used together? For example, machine, I see here, and then probably learning can be used in a lot in the any tweet or text. So I like to see like what are the combination of the words being used most often, right? So that's something that you can actually go to the word pairs. And obviously, like a machine learning or learning machine, these two words used a lot in a data science related tweets. And this is kind of like expected. And then another thing is if I go to word pairs table, this one is basically like you see all the pairs. So it's kind of like just a table format. And the cool thing is, hey, like I was looking for this word, let's say like a pi. Did I type this? Or Python or something, and you can type it and then to search that text. And this search capability is not unique to analytics. We added this search to the table under the chart view as well. So you can search or filter the data to be shown in the table from this release. Okay, so now the last not least is under the word pairs. So this one is not showing only the pair, but also the kind of like a relationship among all the words. This one is the top frequent words, but it shows you that, for example, like a learning and then machine. So okay. So let's go step by step. So each circle is the frequency of each word appearing in the whole entire data. So for example, learning is the biggest circle. That means probably the number of the appearances is the highest, and then the bigger the high frequent words, and then smaller is the low frequent words. Now, this line is when you see this line is a darker and also thicker, the color and then the thickness of the line is basically showing the exact same information, which is how often that combination appears. So for example, basically like when you go to the word pair, so this is 1189 as a value. What that means, this combination shows up in 1189 tweets in this case. So that when you go here, so that's represented by this line, this thick line. So when you see the thick or darker color, that means the relationship between those two words are very obvious or high in this data. So, and another thing is they say like research and the paper and the pay, somehow like these words has a kind of high big relationship. And then I think it looks like around here, these are the words seems like have a very close relationship: big data, machine learning, learning Python, AI, and analytics, and so on. So obviously, I would remove this machine learning because this one is probably machine and then learning. So, that's the kind of thing that you can kind of start juggling with this data as well. So this one gives you the sort of like overall relationship, like how they are, each terms are close to one another. So I think it's very useful. Another thing is, let's say here, words to be treated as one word. And in this one, let's say the machine and then learning, hey, don't split those. Hey, those are not supposed to be split because it's basically the same thing. The machine and learning, there's no point of separating it. If you have such word, or like, sometimes it happens like some name of the person, name of the company, or something like that, you don't want to be tokenized. So in that case, you can actually let's say, hey, this is like a machine learning, and then you can type it, and then you can click apply button to not to treat, not to separate. I think, wait a second. So this one, machine learning, I'm gonna just type something like this, machine learning, and then click apply button. And then this is the sort of like, you can say like this is a preserved word, and then don't separate. And I think this should work. It didn't work, but maybe I need to type like this. I forgot. I think we supported not to have the space between, but let's see. This is okay. So that way here I have like machine learning, machine space learning. So this is how I wanted to have, the word. So instead of like separating it. So you can separate these. I mean, like you can sort of like customize like how you want to do the tokenization of the process as well. Okay, so that's the really text analysis. And the other thing is, how many more minutes? Okay, so we have the chart area, and we added the error bar summarized data. So let's take a look. So error bar is great for visualizing uncertainty or confidence intervals, such as 95% confidence interval or something. When you have the data, let's say like a logical data type or column, then in this case, each employee has left the company or not left the company, right? So that's the indicative information. If you have this type of data, then you can go to the error bar and assign the columns, and you get that visualization right away. However, some of the data is not presented that way. So what that means, this is considered as aggregated because it's not like each row indicates true or false. This data, what we are looking at, is like a download from Google Analytics, and it says bounce and the bounce rate. Think of it, this is like a convert and a conversion rate, and same thing. But it's a bounce rate is basically some people come to our website and then leave right away. So that's called bounce. So like how many sessions we have at the total and how much of that, all the sessions are being bounced. So Then this one is sort of like an aggregated value because like, each page, like 605, I'm reading the second row in this data, 656 bounces, and then out of 2,922. So this is already summarized or aggregated. It's not like each session bounced or not, right? So this type of data we get a lot as well in the real world. Sorry. So we wanted to make it easier to visualize uncertainty for this type of data. So that's where you want to select this new error bar bracket summarized data. We are not 100% confident with this naming, so we might change it later on. If you have any feedback, please let us know. But when you select this summarized data type error bar, then you can set the numerator and the denominator under the y-axis area. In this case, bounce rate is basically bounces divided by sessions. So therefore, I assign bounces to the y-axis, sessions to total number. And then you get this kind of error bar. This is for ratio, but even like when you want to visualize the uncertainty for mean, the same thing. So this is pretty, I think it's kind of cool if you are into error bar or if you want to make sure to show the confidence interval. And this, another one is a table search. I covered that under text analysis. Basically, like this is like under the chart view, you can search the data as well. And then you can export the data to Google Sheet. I think this is also new, not just a chart view, but also analytics view as well. And we have added a calendar widget. We have talked about this one before. Okay, so here's the last thing for 6.6. Exploratory is built on top of R, which is the most popular data science programming language, along with Python. The R has upgraded to 4.1 recently. So therefore, with this release, we support R 4.1 as well. So first time you download it and then launch Exploratory 6.6, it will try to install the R 4.1 if you haven't had R 4.1. The cool thing about this R 4.1 release is, significant change, or if anything, the only noticeable change is if you happen to be working on M1 or Apple Silicon Mac, then it will have the native support. And what's cool thing about that is the M1 is known for like much faster performance, and the R introduced with this like a R 4.1 introduce native support for this M1 or Apple Silicon. So therefore, it's much faster actually, especially when you see the significant place you see this performance improvement is data import, such as, for example, when you import a CSV or Excel data, we observe almost like 2 times faster. So that's one area. And the most left-hand side, gray is 4.0, and then blue is 4.1. Again, this is unfortunately, this performance improvement is only for the M1 Mac users. And Intel Mac users, me included, not much significant improvement in terms of performance. You might see a little faster, but not as like this. And another area is a summary view. And that's also, we see from like 1.5 times to 2.5 times faster. So that performance improvement is there. So when you download, if you happen to be Mac users, and then when you click the download button, you see 2 choices. If you are M1 Mac users, you want to click on the M1 Mac. And if you're not sure, that means most likely you're not M1, you're probably using Intel, then you want to select the Mac Intel. Okay, so that's it for today. And then the next seminar we are planning is Introduction to dashboard. So we have improved the dashboard overall over the last few releases. And so I think this is the time like I wanted to wrap up and then, where we are and how do you, that experience of like creating dashboard and also the life cycle, how you start and how you sort of end or like how you, the maximize the value of the dashboard. So that's that topic. And then as always, you can find our online seminar information from our website under the run, go to the online seminar, and then you can see the future plans and also the past recording as well. Okay, that's it. So Exploratory version 6.6. And then I think whatever you can download from today is pretty stable. But we probably over the few weeks we're gonna as we find some issues or small incremental opportunity of small incremental improvements, we might release another patch as well. Okay. That's it. And then I'd like to open up the questions. If you have any, let me know.